Okay, we are now moving on to task list B. It is concepts and principles. B-1 deals with identifying and distinguishing among behavior, response, and response class. It's a bigger section, so we're going to kind of go over something we just went over in task list A, the last part of A5, when we're discussing behavior. Behavior is anything an organism does. It includes actions that change the environment in some sort of way. Talking, eating, writing, reading. And then again, we're just going back through the dead man's test. So if a dead man can do it, it's not behavior. What are pivotal behaviors? Pivotal behaviors lead to new and untrained behaviors, so like functional communication training or joint attention. You are pairing another behavior with something else to train untrained, or to lead to untrained behaviors. Lead to new untrained behaviors, yes. Behavior cusps are behaviors that allow the learner to contact new reinforcers or additional parts of the environment. Reading, for example, you're never going to be able to go backwards once you teach a kid how to read. They're always going to be able to read more and more. Same as learning how to use transportation. It won't be something like you'll be able to not learn anymore or not know anymore. You'll always know that. So it just is allowing this new reinforcer, and it can continue to grow and grow and grow and add additional parts of the environment. Like when you're learning how to transport, you can really learn how to travel the world then. Response is just a single instance of a behavior. So for example, answering 4 in response to 2 plus 2, screaming to gain a snack. A lot of the time I think behavior and response get mixed up. Quickly pull this out. Response is a measurable unit of analysis in the science of behavior analysis. Behavior doesn't occur without an environment. That's something to keep in mind. So real quick for response, an example could be if clapping one's hand at the end of a performance is a behavior, then each individual clap is a response. So again, behavior is going to be including the movement with the skin, not observable by others. Action that has effect on the environment, how living organisms interact with their environment. All of the behaviors a person can do, and a collection of learned skills related to a specific task or specific setting is called repertoire. So you might see that on the exam as well. Study behavior, clapping hands, thinking about an old boyfriend, shifting eye gaze in another direction are all examples of behavior. And then just remember that a response is going to be a single instance of those behaviors. When we're moving on to response class, we're going to think of a group of behaviors that have the same function. They're important to us because behavior analysis looks at how behavior affects the environment functionally. All of the behaviors in a specific response class have the same effect on the environment, and similar behaviors that are strengthened or weakened collectively as a result of operant conditioning. More on response class is just think a group of behaviors that meet the same need. For example, exam prep behaviors serve the same function but can look topographically different. So like reading a manual or watching videos, taking mock exams, doing SAF meds, attending workshops, filling out the flashcards, drawing pictures of concepts that make more sense visually are all different ways of exam prep behavior, but they're all going to serve the same function, which is learning the material for the exam. And So that would be a response class. Responses in the same response class can look different. Members of some response classes may have widely varying forms. So, for example, there are many ways to get dressed, but topographically, variations among members of other response classes can be limited. For example, an individual's signature or a grip on a golf club, etc. So real quick, we'll go through, is it a behavior? Since behavior is the subject of interest for behavior analysis, it is important to be able to define it. Here are a few questions you can ask yourself to make sure you are able to better discriminate. Is it an action? A verb? So like running, moving your arm, crying, frowning, collecting change, thinking about the exam. Yes, it's going to be a behavior. Is it a label? Like tired, happy, sad, interested. These are adjectives, not verbs. Is it a condition or a state? Hungry, anxious, depressed. These are also adjectives. Does it pass the mentalism test? So mentalistic terminology rarely describes behavior. So think experiencing anxiety, confusion, depression, or mindfulness. That also is not going to count as behavior. Does it pass the operational definition test? If you cannot operationally define it so that it can be measured by a person, it's not behavior. So, for example, feeling negative because you're jealous, try to define it. You can't. Does it pass the dead man's test? If a dead man can do it, it's not behavior. And then, being knocked down by a strong wind is not behavior. A dead man can do that. Moving arms and hands in front of your face, tucking, rolling, and yelling, whoa, as you are being blown over are behaviors. Smiling, eating, pacing, aggressing, pouring water on your own head, crying, taking money, rocking your body side to side are all verbs, and they're all behaviors. Happy, hungry, anxious, mean, getting wet, standing in the rain, depressed, receiving money, getting blown over by wind is not a behavior. Some of those things dead men can do, but that means they're not behavior. Alright, that is pretty much the gist of B-1. I think we'll leave it there because it's pretty long. Response and response class will come up again and again and again. So just remembering what response is and then what a response class is going to be really important.